welcome to the marketplace. Let's run you through our headlines for this afternoon. Government to make second Eurobond debt payment in January next year. Assures funds have been set aside to meet all its obligations.
Already paid coupons amounting to about 520 million United States dollars, which we did in, I think it was in October.
Meanwhile, government says it has met its obligation in finalizing the debt restructuring agreement with independent power producers. However, the current parliamentary impasse has stalled the process for some power producers.
So until Parliament returns and approves those two PPAs, they will remain outstanding. Meanwhile, government has met our side of the obligation. We have met our obligation. We have paid the one-off payments we're supposed to make to them. We have done everything. We haven't missed on a dollar.
Also, we're getting the latest figures from the Ghana Statistical Service. November inflation went up marginally to hit 23%. We've got details coming up. Well, first up on the marketplace, government has revealed that it will make a second Eurobond debt payment in January next year. Servicing of external debt started in October this year with an initial payment of $520 million. Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam is Minister of Finance. He spoke at a press conference on the economy.
Servicing is in the form of coupons, and we are doing it already. We've already paid coupons amounting to about 520 million United States dollars, which we did in, I think it was in October. Our next coupon payment will be 2nd January, and we are ready. We are not going to default. We are ready to service our debts.
Now, government says it has met its obligation in finalizing the debt restructuring agreement with independent power producers. However, the current parliamentary impasse has stalled the process for some power producers. According to the Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, all financial commitments have been made with 3 out of 5 of the IPPs. Here's more in this report.
Government insists that the country's economy is strong and will continue to experience improved macroeconomic signs in the short to medium term. The Minister for Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, noted that government has maintained strict expenditure lines ahead of the 2024 elections, which he says has contributed to the country's improved financials. He made this known at the monthly economic press briefing.
In an election year, we've maintained fiscal discipline, uncharacteristic fiscal discipline, and with all the massive infrastructure around the country, as demonstrated by the many His Excellency, the President has commissioned recently.
On the state of debt restructuring with independent power producers, the Member of Parliament for Karaga stated that government has met its side of the bargain with the expectation that the IPPs will deliver same.
Yes, we concluded negotiation with them, and some of them have signed off. For example, AXA has signed off, and we are implementing the restructured PPA. Asogli also is about to sign off. The Senate has signed off. What is outstanding is the one with SenPower and Amandi, because they are required to go to Parliament for parliamentary approval. And so until Parliament returns and approves those two PPAs, they will remain outstanding. Meanwhile, government has met our side of the obligation. We have met our obligation. We have paid the one-off payments we're supposed to make to them. We have done everything. We haven't missed on a dollar.
Dr. Amin Adam was optimistic that holders of structured debt will recover their monies in the short term.
I want to assure the people of Ghana, particularly those who have lost money, that this recovery is not by accident. We've implemented good policies. We've implemented measures that are driving the economy back. And with the rate of recovery we are seeing, I do not have any doubt that in a year or two, those who have lost money will recover their money.
With $360 million expected to hit government accounts in the coming days, many anticipate a stable currency in the next couple of weeks. Additionally, the Minister of Finance believes that improved macroeconomic indicators underscore a strong economy. From the Ministry of Finance for Joy Business, Isaac Atasenyako.
Now, the IMF is asking government to take some drastic measures to deal with challenges facing the energy sector. The fund believes that this could be one of the surest ways to contain fiscal shocks to the economy. Here's Georgia Afe with more.
IMF, in its advice, noted that the associated debt facing the energy sector poses the biggest threat to Ghana's economic recovery. That is why everything must be done to ensure that things doesn't get out of hand. The fund, for instance, wants government to do more in dealing with the revenue mobilization challenges facing the energy sector. That is, the inability to deal with the power distribution firms in recovering their costs, which has impacted negatively on the whole power generation sector. The IMF is not just looking at the energy sector debts, but the possibility of it getting into a full-blown power crisis, and how that could impact on the entire economy. The World Bank, in a recent interview with Joy Business, noted that it still has issues with the agreement that government has reached with the independent power producers, and how that could impact on its finances badly going forward.
All right, you're watching The Marketplace. We are getting a read of the latest inflation figures. Inflation for the month of November went up marginally to reach 23% from the October figure of 22.1%. The adjustment was influenced by a rising cost of foodstuff on the market over the past month. Here to tell us more, my colleague Winston Taki, who's been going through the figures released by the Ghana Statistical Service. What's in there?
Interesting assessing how sudden increase has been reflected in terms of inflation. We assess the figure consistently. We've seen the central bank instituting the policy rate, ensuring that it is maintained, and we've seen the figure that came recently. However, if we look at the nominal terms in terms of inflation for the month of November, it increased to 23%, and that is a bit interesting considering the way the market has been reacting. However, many are saying that it could be due to the anticipation going into the Christmas season. But if you look at the key items in the inflation, you realize that inflation for food items has increased by 3.8%, basically a percentage point for the month on month. But if you compare it to the same period last year, it was a bit marginal in terms of the increase. Also, non-food inflation was also a bit marginal as well. But many have said that due to some of the changes in local food prices, and key among them is beans, followed by yam and some tubers. You know, young boys like beans, they go bestseller. However, that is what is reflected.
So I mean, this uptick we've seen in food inflation, you say, could be because we are in the festive season?
Probably. And many are also anticipating that the challenges that has bedeviled the agri sector, one key has to do with the Galamsey operation, where farmers are giving out their farmlands. There's highly risks going into the first quarter of 2024 that this anticipation will reflect in our agriculture outtake subsequently.
Yeah, because, I mean, we thought we had a hangover food prices looking at the previous figures, but now it looks like the tide is turning. Any other indicators in that report from the Ghana Statistical Service?
It appears that locally made items also experienced some increase in inflation, hitting 25.6%, with imported items having an inflation of 17.6%. And this is reflective in the market. The challenge more has to do with the locally produced items because of the tariff increment that happened recently. Most of the producers are anticipating that the producer price inflation, where they see the price of raw materials going up consistently. Just last week, I met with a carpenter who was telling me that he bought a plywood for, let me give a range, possibly 700 Ghana cedis. And when the next day he went there, although the price plywood was available,
the same old plywood, they hoarded it, waiting for it to go up, and it keeps increasing day by day, and that is the extent.
However, it is not in the inflation basket, but the market is feeling the reaction.
I think that the Bank of Ghana revised its end-of-year inflation target to 21.1%. I think that's a figure. We are 23 point what? 23%.
23%, yeah.
How likely does that look? I mean, I don't know what the economists will say, but it looks a bit far off it, doesn't it?
The revision target can be there, but the market, the substantive reaction of the consumers is what tells you how the future will look like. You can have the target, but it's necessary that the citizens will see the prices going down. The initial stability in the MPC rate, mostly according to the central bank, was to ensure price stability while anticipating growth in the economy, because the access to funding, cheap capital for businesses. So the central bank intends to balance the market to ensure that not much of the price will happen, also not much of increase in access to capital.
Right. We are also getting some figures concerning trade. Tell us about that.
So in the first quarter, we saw trade booming in the first quarter. Subsequently, we saw that in the second quarter. However, in the third quarter, we've experienced some trade deficit. The previous quarters, we experienced surpluses. In this quarter, we saw imports increasing to the tune of $27.0 billion, Ghana cedis. However, the export came down to basically 24.8 billion cedis, and that is a big shift. But if you look at the cumulative conversation from first quarter to the third quarter, our export was hitting around 74.8 billion, while the import is around 70 billion. So if you look at it cumulatively, we are doing well. But what really brought about the shift in this quarter is the exportation of gold. We saw, if you look at the overall first quarter and second quarter economic performance, the gold and mining sector contributed enormously, and that is reflective in this quarter as well.
All right, we are throwing a lot of figures out there. So just for the benefit of our audience, what does this really say about our terms for trade balance?
It's interesting because if you look at the real performance, the real economy, where goods and services, the production level is supposed to be the holder of the economy. This time around is the mining sector. If you look at the outspread of jobs that comes to the economy, the mining sector does not really give a true reflective of the individual. How many individuals can be employed in the mining sector compared to the services sector, which has consistently first been leading the growth rate? Now being overtaken by the mining sector tells you how interesting it is. Many have said it could possibly be to government's policy of good for oil, which has also enhanced the activity of mining operations in some parts of the economy. Another anticipation is also due to the illegal operations of some of the mining or mined products, which has not necessarily gone through the right channels. But the central bank is quite optimistic that a lot is done to ensure there's monitoring of the operations in the sector.
All right. Thank you so much, Winston Taki, for passing through with those figures. Very important figures sharing with us here on the marketplace. We are headed for a short break. When we come back, we'll be doing Let's Talk Tech. We'll be discussing the digital policies of the two major political parties. I don't know how that is going to influence your choice this Saturday, but do stay with us here on the marketplace. we've got just 3 days to the elections, and ahead of the elections, we want to assess the digital policies of two major political parties, the ruling New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress. Joining me in studio to do the analysis, my colleague Isaac Atesen-Nyako, who has been looking into it. What did you find?
Yeah, so Daryl, very interesting. I mean, we all know one of the candidates, that's Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, being touted as, the digitalization man, or the one preaching the digital
By
agenda.
the way, he commissioned the e-gates at the Kotoka International Airport.
Exactly, and so, yeah, that brings me to, a very important point. Now, for a lot of the policies under the NPP, some have been implemented, or, for a lot of the things that he's spoken about, it has been implemented. But if you look at the two manifestos now, the NPP really has a digital policy, whereas the NDC does not. However, if you go through it, you find sectors. And so if you look at this, for instance, under job creation, now Bawumia says he will train 1 million, young people in areas and levels of digital skills, while Mahama says he will do so, but this time in a different format. Launch a 3 billion investment partnership with private sector, and then create 1 million coders, web and software developers. Now, just oppose this to this. Now, let's look at the second point. Establish a national robotics engineering AI labs to research. And then in here, you also find out that there's the creation of digital centers, which will be established across the various regions, which should facilitate business process outsourcing and then knowledge process outsourcing as well. So pretty similar things if you look at the two, but it looks like the NPP goes into further details. Now let's look at this, the establishment of a fintech fund with seed capital of $100 million.
Looks like the same.
Exactly.
The seed capital probably $50 million.
Exactly. So just oppose this. Bawumia seems to be promising much more than Mahama is on this particular issue. Now, implementation of digital residency. Now, he says he wants a lot more tech people to come in here, so he has plans of creating digital residency. I'm not sure what that means really, but again, Mahama says he will establish a nationwide zonal ICT park, or parks for that matter, to serve as a hub for innovation and digitalization. So by and large, these are like a summary, if I can put it that way, of their policies on job or digital job creation. But I must say that NPP is very heavy in this regard if you look at their manifesto. So we can check the next slide, which talks about international relations, tourism, and creative arts for that matter. Now, Bawumia says he will implement a 5-year digital nomad visa and work permits to attract global tech talent. Now, Mahama also says that you negotiate e-visa arrangements with other countries to facilitate international travel trade. So some similarities, if you compare, again, the e-visa plays out here in Bawumia's manifesto as well. So we realize that everybody trying to put policies in place which will attract people into the country, maybe not only tech, expert or tech talent, but, across various sectors of the economy. Again, establishing partnership with the private sector, streaming digital platform. And he mentioned this when he met the creative arts industry, quite recently.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if you go through the policies, these are some of the main, standouts if you go through the policy, especially regarding international relations, tourism, and then the creative arts industry. Again, the digital residency plays out here because he's quite keen on, creating that ecosystem, that environment for people to be able to walk in and out, and also build that digital ecosystem in various sectors of the economy.
Yeah, and also you're looking at what is relatable. Well, look at point 3, support young digital content creators in developing content that promotes Ghanaian culture. Looks like something young people will be excited about.
Very.
Review and strictly enforce broadcasting, digital media, and local content provisions to stimulate local artistic productions. That's what Mahama is promising.
Exactly, and it's very interesting because if you look at what's happening currently with regards to content creation, we are likely to tend towards what's being produced in the West because they have a lot of content on these platforms. If you look at the digital streaming platforms, for instance, Netflix, how many Ghanaian movies are on Netflix? If you look at our music channels, we don't even have categories for high live music or as a genre on the various, music streaming platforms. So all of these are things which are good, which will help the creative economy if they are able to implement it. But it's not going to be that easy.
You launched something in that regard recently. I don't know which of the candidates did.
No, I think Mahmoud Bawumia, doctor, made mention of that when he met the creative arts industry. I mean, he was quite heavy on creating digital platforms. But then again, one would ask, why would the government go into creation or the creation of digital streaming platforms. I mean, there's something that should be managed by the private sector. And so I don't know how he's going to manage this as to whether... Well, as to whether he's going to, sublet it to the private sector.
We've got time for the next slide, shall we?
Yes, and the next slide or the last slide will be on taxes. Now, abolishment
they all seem to agree on this one.
Exactly.
E-levy.
That stands out
interesting, the stance of Dr. Bawumia, especially when the government he served under was the one that introduced the E-levy policy, but he wants to take a different course when he becomes... if he becomes president. Yeah. So both candidates promising to abolish E-levy. Very interesting. I mean, the E-levy has been a subject of controversy in the past couple of months. And so, yeah, it's very important to see what both, candidates will do. And most importantly, how they replace some of these revenue lines. That's just by the way. But anyways, Dr. Bawumia says that he will eliminate import duties on mobile phones. Okay. Until manufacturing capacity is established here in Ghana. I don't know if he has plans of establishing manufacturing of mobile phones here in Ghana. I'm sure there's something in the works. Definitely, something must be cooking for him to be able to make this promise. Thank you so much, Isaac Atase-Nyarko, join us in studio to discuss the digital policies of the NPP and the NDC. Great insight there. Hopefully, it would influence your choice for who becomes the president after the elections on December 7th. That's the Marketplace, everyone. Thanks for watching. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. We have the latest on the latest inflation number. Figures released by the Ghana Statistical Service. It's at my back, I'm told. Inflation for November 2024 goes marginally to 23%. Also, the finance minister's briefing yesterday. Get up to date on all that he said. myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Daryl Kwan. Thanks for watching. We will be back same time tomorrow.